Ron Sanchez is your coach, UVA Basketball. Chris Graham here, Augusta Free Press. First, I got to start this story with addressing something from a so-called parody account that started a rumor last night. I'm recording this on Wednesday, so Tuesday night, that Georgetown coach Ed Cooley had been offered the UVA job. Uh, let me do a diatribe here on so-called parody accounts, satire accounts. It's not parody or satire when you just make stuff up and report it as fact. It's not. It's just stupid. Um, and I understand this kind of thing goes on in the Big East, among the Big East Twitter, as it's called, on a regular basis. It's just nonsense. It's not parody. It's just making stuff up. It makes everybody look bad. It's disinformation. Why do people do this? What do they get off this? I don't understand. Anyway, okay, there the rant's over. Um, Ron Sanchez is your coach, at least for this year. Sanchez, the right-hand man for Tony Bennett since the early 2000s when they were together out at Washington State on Tony Bennett's father, Dick Bennett's staff there, came over here together in 2009. Sanchez then left for a few years. He took the head coaching job down at Charlotte for 5 years, got them back to 22 wins, and then came back to Virginia last summer. Um, he will be the head coach for the season, and I guess we'll all hope that the season goes well enough that Sanchez ends up being the head coach for a while thereafter. It would certainly be a nice testament to the Tony Bennett era if Sanchez, who I think Tony left a good team, if we can even say that Tony left him this team. Ron Sanchez recruited a lot of these guys himself, but if this program can continue in that way, think about the Dean Smith era. Where are we now with Dean Smith? Hubert Davis is the coach now, right? He took over for Roy Williams, who took over for Matt Doherty. Doherty didn't do so well. Doherty took over from Bill Guthridge, who went to two Final Fours in 3 years after Dean Smith retired. They're still working on the Carolina family tree. It'd be nice if Tony Bennett could have a family tree. Let's just imagine here, Ron Sanchez in his mid 40s, and then when it's time for him to hang up the sneakers, it's Kyle Guy or Isaiah Wilkins that takes over for him, 8, 10 years from now, whatever might be the case. That's kind of where we would like to see things go, and that would, start with a good season this year, and then we don't have to worry about this national search that Carla Williams seems to think she wants to be on. I'm going to point out, just for posterity, that Carla's contract, as of right now, her contract as athletics director is up on May 31st, 2025. I FOIA'd that a couple months ago. So unless something's happened between or since then and between now and then, uh, her term is up in just a few months. Uh, no reason to think that University of Virginia wouldn't want to retain her, but there's also a lot of reason to think she may just be thinking about greener pastures. We'll just have to see. But fact is, her contract's up, so she may be leading a search for the next athletics director. You just don't know. So today, on Wednesday, earlier today, Ron Sanchez joined with the Virginia media, local media. There were some national people in there too, at least one or two, to talk about taking over the job. And I jumped on the Zoom and want to point out a few things that were talked about here. On the interim tag, Sanchez says it doesn't play a role in his job at all. He said, "My role here as an assistant coach was to be a person that showed up every day to impact the program, help the program be successful. It wasn't about having a different employment opportunity." That's what he said. He came back last summer knowing this was going to be a distinct possibility. He didn't give up a head coaching job to become an assistant coach without something having been mentioned about Tony, who said at his retirement press conference last week he'd been thinking about stepping down for 3 years. Okay, so there we go. That covers all that. Ron said, "I'm here to serve this institution for however long it is." Realistically, the job is his if Virginia meets expectations this year. Virginia was picked fifth in the preseason in the ACC. That's fifth out of 18. If you're fifth in the ACC out of 18 schools, you're going to win between 23 and 25 games. You're going to be a solid NCAA tournament team, like a 6 or 7 seed. And if that's the case, Ron Sanchez is the guy going forward. This job only opens up if this season falls short of expectations, and I don't think it is. It's a good roster. I like this team. Um, and just planting a seed again, the Carla Williams thing. Uh, you can see I saw a lot of this today with Sanchez talking to the media. He is a guy that's very much in the mold of Tony Bennett. He talked about how, those guys, the two of those guys are close friends. They work out together, they play tennis together. They've been friends since again they were, young guys on a staff for Dick Bennett, Tony's father, out at Washington State. They were fellow low guys on the totem pole at that point, and they've grown up in basketball together. Really interesting story too. Sanchez, just getting to know him a little bit as a person. He's a native of the Dominican Republic. His family moved here when he was young. He grew up, he said, 2 blocks from Yankee Stadium, and said from their family apartment that you could see the lights of the stadium. That's that's a great way to grow up. Talked about how, being a Dominican, growing up near Yankee Stadium, a family of baseball fans. He's one of nine, he said, one of nine kids. And basketball was something that kept him out of trouble in the winter months, and it turned out to work out pretty well for him. Um, Fascinating backstory there for Ron Sanchez. He talked about how his tenure at Charlotte helped him. And I've thought this ever since he returned. And I thought about this a little bit when he left. Hey, wonder if this guy's leaving to just get some head coaching experience and, make himself, because it was Charlotte, a mid-major school, um, the former UNC Charlotte. And it turns out, there was a lot to that. Excuse me. Um, Becoming a head coach and being the head guy for 5 years is different than sitting even just one seat away from the head coach on the bench, right? He said, I see all of it now. It's one thing to be an assistant, it's another thing to be a head coach and have led a program. Um, I'm using those experiences right now, he said. He's only been the, excuse me, he's only been the interim head coach at Virginia for, I think it's 5 days now, but, it is different. I mean, when, he said, you got to be the guy to come in and get them to pursue a specific goal. You got to be the guy to create energy in practice. You're not one of the guys on the side that, has special assignments and that kind of thing. From a style of play perspective, Bennett, after last season's NCAA tournament flameout, had acknowledged publicly that, obviously things needed to change. I mean, 42 points in that loss to Colorado State, a long stretch. It was over 10 minutes without scoring a basket. It just, obviously needed to change some things. And so um, the reports that had come out of from around the UVA program all summer and into the early fall, even when Tony Bennett was still by name the head coach of the program, were that Ron Sanchez had been directed to, take the reins and lead practice, and they were going to speed things up a little bit. Not going to play Loyola Marymount basketball, but speed things up a little bit from being the slowest team in the country. Um, and Sanchez addressed that today. He said, "We'll do some things that are going to be we're going to be we're going to be a little different. Not just because I'm here, though. Not just because I'm the head guy, basically. Those are the things that Tony and I and the staff had discussed this summer. We were all involved in many conversations about trying to do things a little differently, and it's not just because of this change. So emphasis. I mean, and we'd been preparing you for that for a few weeks, so it's not a surprise. What I've been telling you for a few weeks is what's going on there. But when you see this team play on November 6th, home opener and season opener against Campbell, you're going to see that in living color. Sanchez said that the main catalyst was just trying to evolve. I think the game has changed so much over the last decade. We were just trying to find a way to keep up with those changes, identifying guys that can open up the floor for us a little bit, guys that can shoot the ball from the perimeter, guys with some size and length. And it was for practical reasons. And you start thinking, look at the guys that they picked up on the portal this spring. TJ Power, a former 5-star recruit from Duke, 6'9" three-point shooter. Elijah Saunders, a 6'8", 242-pound guy from San Diego State, played in the Final Four a couple of years ago, who can bang on defense down low, but he's also got a really soft touch from the three-point line, shot 96% from the foul line. He's got a nice stroke. You've got, of course, Isaac McNeely returning, 6'4" three-point shooter. You got guys who can stretch the floor. Day-Day Ames, the point guard from Kansas State, coming in, I would think largely because of the injury to Elijah Gertrude. They're both rising sophomores. But Day-Day Ames can really push the pace as a point guard. So he'll really fit into this new look, new feel Virginia offense really well. Push the pace, create some more shots, you know, penetrate the lane, make the defense collapse, kick out to open three-point shooters. It's going to be interesting to see how this all works out with this new look roster and this new approach from the coaching staff, which again, to be fair, is not just because that's not why Tony Bennett stepped down. There were lots of other reasons Tony Bennett stepped down, but before he did, he helped put an imprint on here's how we can play Tony Bennett, Dick Bennett basketball with a little bit more tempo. And Ron Sanchez and his staff, Jason Williford, Isaiah Wilkins, Kyle Guy, Brad Soderberg. Boy, I'm going down a list here. Hopefully, I'm leaving some guys out. That's up to them now to see this through. So some of this is Ron Sanchez is your interim assistant or your interim head coach, and some prankster got us thinking for a few minutes at least. I know my heart was pounding a little bit last night. What is going on here? The guy from Georgetown's coming. Why would they do this at this time? It makes no sense. Okay, so you got us for a few minutes, but it's not parody. It's not satire. It's just nonsense. So if you have any questions for me, any comments, any a news tip, I've gotten lots of good reach outs in recent days, recent weeks, for things to look into, and we're trying to do our best. There's a lot to catch up on, but if you have anything for us in that respect, please feel free to drop me an email at chris@augustafreepress.com.